This deer painting has been months in the making, and we're in the final stages. But I want to use this video to talk about how I'm trying to change the way I paint to create rather than copy. Because photo reference can make you lazy, really lazy. And I know, because I'm guilty of it, but I want to change that. And here's what I'm trying to do. Today I'm finally going to get around to painting the deer. I'm going to work on one deer at a time, and I want them to have very similar colour palettes. So in order to do that, I want to mix up my base colours so I can keep them similar for both of the deer. In one of my previous videos, you heard me mention about the brushwork of the initial layers being quite messy, and you can sort of see that there. You can still see a lot of the grain of the canvas showing through, and a lot of that underpainting is still visible. So I just want this secondary layer using linseed oil and the oil paints to create these thicker marks and make it look a little bit more painterly. I'm trying to move away from copying a photograph exactly and try and focus more on the painting itself. I don't want to limit myself by restricting my ability to just copying a photograph. I want to be able to put a little bit of myself in the paintings, and hopefully in doing that I'll create some more recognisable and also more pleasing art. I didn't get anywhere near as much done as I wanted to today. I've got the head of the deer in. I'll just show you that a little bit more closely. So I've blocked in the head and the antlers. You can see those a little bit more. I was hoping I was going to get all of this guy done today, but I didn't. It's just taken a lot longer than I thought it would. So you can see the difference between the rendering here and here. It's all a bit streaky here, where it's a little bit more refined here and on the head. I'm going to try and get the rest of that deer done tomorrow, and then hopefully make a start on this deer. I think this second deer is going to be a little bit easier because the reference that I'm following for that one is a little bit more exact, whereas this one, I've just got a black and white version of it here because I'm trying to colour match with the one that I've already got. So I'm working with values rather than colours for most of it, and I'm just really struggling getting the right values for the right colours, which is why it's taking so long, because I'm just having to double check everything, second guess myself, remix it, redo it again and again and again. But I'm getting there slowly, I'm making progress. Hopefully next day or two, I'm going to get these deer in, and then I can start working on the foreground. The big thing that I'm focusing on with my current paintings, rather than photorealism and getting all the tiny details, is trying to build up some form. I'm thinking about the brushstrokes a little bit more, and rather than trying to get every single individual hair strand, I'm just trying to build these big solid 3D masses that add a little bit more depth and a little bit more volume to the painting. I want to create these solid subjects, these substantial deer or lions or whatever it is I'm painting that almost seem to jump out of the canvas, like you could reach in and touch them. And I think at the moment that isn't to do with details, that's to do with getting the values right, so how light and how dark each area of the painting is. One of the things that I am trying to experiment with is trying to include a little bit more of a range of values. So I want more different mid-values. I've got my darks, I've got my lights, I have very high contrast paintings, I'm good at that because of my charcoal drawings, but I want to include a wider range of values in there, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to do with this painting, and hopefully it's having an effect. Good morning, I'm on to what is, I'm hoping, going to be the penultimate day on this painting, and I am on to the dreaded day, the day that I have to paint rocks. and I am really not looking forward to painting this. Because this is in the foreground, I want it in quite a lot of detail, and it means I'm going to have to really get stuck into all that nitty-gritty of the rocks and all the foliage and all the grass that's going to be in this part of the painting. And I've got to do that and hopefully try and make it good enough that it's clearly in the foreground, but not too good that it overpowers the deer. I'm pretty happy with how these deer are looking so far. I wanted them quite bold, quite powerful, quite saturated, so they are like really set apart from everything else. Like the clouds are quite pastely coloured, the green in the background is quite pastely coloured, but these guys really saturated, really vibrant, and hopefully when it's finished, really eye-catching as well. But I'll see if I need to make any changes once I've got this foreground in. Wish me luck. For some reason I didn't film the first part of painting these rocks, but it took me an entire day just to get that right hand corner and then the rock that you see me painting now to completion. I think it was just because it was the first time that I've ever painted anything like this with all these mossy rocks that I wanted to take my time and make sure that I actually got everything looking as good as I could and get it looking like I wanted it to look in my head. Even though I couldn't really imagine visualizing it in my head, but I had this sort of like idea of like thoughts that were a jumbled mess of what I might want it to look like without it actually being an image in my brain. And I took my time, I practiced the technique, and then it really helped taking my time here because the next day I managed to get a good chunk of those rocks finished. The next day, the rocks flew together. It just seemed super simple and super easy because I'd taken the time the day before to get that practice in. I mean, it still took me all day, and I don't enjoy the process of painting rocks anymore, but I do think it did actually save me a lot of time and a lot of trouble, because if I was really struggling with these rocks, I could have had a proper strop and just given up on the whole painting, so I'm glad that didn't happen. The final part of this painting was the grass, and normally with my grass I will mix up 3 or 4 colours and it'll seem a little bit flat and not quite dark enough. Like, I don't always go dark enough with the darks. So this time I really wanted to make sure that I had lots of that dark colour, that dark paint showing through, and I also wanted to leave some of that underpainting showing through as well because I thought that added interest. Basically, what I was trying to do with all of the grass and the ground, and pretty much all of this painting really, is increase the variation in the colours and the brush strokes. I didn't want everything looking too similar, so there's lots of different sized brushes, lots of different shaped brushes, and lots of different colours and like variations of those colours, especially the greens and the oranges, within all of that grass and that ground, as well as some pinks and some lavenders and some lilacs that help tie in the ground to the sky in the form of like little flowers. They also tie into the shadows in the rocks, and it just keeps the whole piece quite unified. But I wanted as much of that variation as possible because I really want to try and start making more interesting paintings. Paintings that don't just look like a copy of a photograph, but are like really nice to look at, that you can look at them from far away, but then you can also get up close to them and see all of those chunky brush marks and all of those little details that really make it look like a painting. And I really do think it made a massive difference, and I learned a lot that's going to help me in later pieces. If you want to see the finished reveal of this painting, then you're going to have to check out my latest video on my Studio Wildlife channel.